Welcome, and thank you to those who are joining us tonight to hear from your candidates for the City of Fitchburg District 1 Common Council seat. At a time when we are all burned out from Zoom meetings and virtual gatherings, I commend your dedication to local government and democracy. I especially thank the candidates for being here tonight, who are offering to speak directly to District 1 residents. We hope this forum will help educate voters as they choose their candidate in the April election. We'll start by briefly discussing the format of tonight's forum. Each candidate will be allowed to deliver an opening statement. The Fitchburg Star staff have prepared the questions, and the number of those we get through depends on how much time we have. The candidates have not been provided the questions, but we did give them a hint of the topics earlier today. If there is time, we will also ask questions submitted by the public. We are scheduled for a 7:30 p.m. stop, but if there are lots of questions or the discussion is going well, we can stretch it by a few minutes. We will reserve time at the end for each candidate to make a closing statement. As I read off each question, I will start a timer that will be visible on the screen to my left. We ask that candidates be respectful of everyone's time and abide by the principles of fairness by staying within the time limit. We also ask that candidates show respect toward one another by not interrupting and leaving your microphones muted until you are asked to speak for a question or a rebuttal opportunity. The candidates in attendance tonight are Dorothy Krause and Dave Herbst. Dorothy is the incumbent candidate. She's been on the council since 2011 and also serves on the Dane County Board of Supervisors, representing the northern portion of Fitchburg. Dave is a utility commissioning and field engineer who has lived in Fitchburg since 1987. Dave is also the current chair of the Board of Public Works and has served on that committee for nearly 30 years. Without further ado, let's begin. Each candidate will now offer their opening statement. We'll have incumbent Dorothy Krause go first. Your time starts now.
Thanks, Kim. I wanted to mention that you had said that I was first elected in 11. That was during the uprising at the Capitol, and that was incredibly important in how I became a politician. I didn't think I was one, still not entirely certain, but it was part of the Act 10. When I was going around talking to people at the doors, everyone is like, well, which side do you want? And I'm like, I'm on the side that wants to talk to one another. And they says, well, which side are you really on? And the answer would be, the further right the state goes, the further left I get pushed. And that has remained true and actually gotten worse. My inclination is to be center, though on the left side of center. I don't like to, and I don't follow typically either extreme to any great extent. I follow a lot of what happens in the middle, and it is the middle that I'm usually concerned about. I'm not part of any particular group wholly. I call cussedly independent. So I talk to everyone. I have good conversations, many good conversations with conservatives, excellent conversations with liberals, very interested in anything related to human services. I think it's at least as important to pay attention to the well-being of the people as it is to money in politics. And I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Dave, you will have 2 minutes to deliver your opening statement, starting now.
Buenas tardes, me llamo David Herbst. Yo vivo con mi familia in Jamestown. Guten Abend, ich heiße David Herbst. Ich wohne mit meiner Family in Jamestown. Lo siento, or entschuldigen Sie, I'll only be speaking in English from now on. I'm Dave Herbst. I live in 2619 King James Way in Jamestown. I've lived in my current house for 33 years. I saved, ate rice and beans for 4 years after college and saved enough for a down payment to buy a house here on King James Way. And I've lived here ever since with my wife of 27 years, Jenny Herbst, and 2 sons who are both in college, along with my 2 dogs. Like most baby boomers, I identify with my occupation. I am a proud electrical engineer, state licensed professional engineer, and been practicing for 38 years. That's what I do for a living. What I am as a person, I'm a father, a husband, a contributor to my community, to my church, and above all, I'm a neighbor, and I am not a politician. If you call me that, I will be very offended. I'm not a politician. I've helped my neighbors for all this time. I would say, why would you vote for me? Go talk to people around me, okay? Early on in my career, I got involved with the Board of Public Works. With my engineering background, I thought I could add value. And I've done that for 28 years. For the last year and a half, I've been appointed a leadership position as the chairman of the Board of Public Works. Very proud of what I've accomplished during that time. And people have urged me to now take a bigger role. I'm not a member of any political party, center right, center left. I talk to everyone, and I listen to everyone, and I do not divide us. People agree that they like talking to me. They might not agree with what I say, but they like talking to me. So
your time is up. Thank you. Thank you to both Dorothy and Dave for your opening statements. We're just going to launch right into our first round of questions. Our first round will focus on community issues within District 1. We'll start with Dave. The question is as follows. The business corridor in the western side of the district, such as the strip mall on Williamsburg Way and commercial properties on King James Way, have seen many businesses leaving or shutting down in the last few years. In your opinion, do you feel that the city has a responsibility to try to encourage businesses to locate there? You have 2 minutes.
all right, well, what I'd say is a lot of this, there are two reasons for it. The first one was the reconstruction of the highway. Now that provided, we have a wonderful highway now that is safer and much better. The second, COVID. COVID drove businesses. They put people out of business. People lost their jobs. Those are the main 2 things. For our neighborhood to be viable, we do need those. We need those businesses back. That strip mall, we need more than a liquor store in there. We'd like to see businesses down the corridor. The city, again, the city has limited power. The city is not God. It cannot create businesses. I think we need to be aware of that. What we need to do is create the opportunity for businesses with low taxes, reasonable regulation, and those things. And there's lots of, there's incubators, there's business loans, there's many things maybe that the city can help facilitate, but we need to create a climate where businesses would want to come here. We have enough people that live in this area to support businesses. There's no reason why they can't thrive here right now. But currently, we've been shut down because of COVID. Our county government has shut things down. No one's going to open a business now, or unlikely. So once we are through this, I see us coming out the other side fairly soon. We'll work with Mike Zimmerman, who is excellent, and we'll see if we can get this turned around and get some businesses back in there. We could use some sort of food or grocery, something at that north end for the residents and Three Fountains and those other places. I think that's kind of a critical element. Thank you.
Thank you. For those of you just joining us, I will repeat each question for each candidate, not only so that they can hear it fresh, but also those of you that are joining us mid answer, you will also know what we are talking about. So Dorothy, I will reread the question for you. The business corridor in the western side of the district, such as the strip mall on Williamsburg Way and commercial properties on King James Way, have seen many businesses leaving or shutting down in the last few years. in your opinion, does the city have a responsibility to try to encourage businesses to locate there? You have 2 minutes.
We definitely have both the obligation and the opportunity. One of the first things that I started talking about Michael Johnson about when I was working in predominantly the Allied area, he was on the Allied Area Task Force and I was active on that as well. I said we need to be intentional about bringing opportunities for our low-income residents for income earning. One of the things that is happening there is the Catholic Multicultural Center is in the old Catholic Knights building. They've got a little bit of a business teaching catering to people that are at risk. I would love to see them expand. I think everybody knows that we've got Little John's working on coming in along that area as well. I definitely encourage activities that will help raise the lower income and struggling people in that community. We need all kinds of things. We've got the quarry site that's going to be huge. We were going to have a major grocery store there that has fallen through. So that's one big opportunity we need to keep track of. The Picasso's Pizza that used to be there, and that entire strip should have more than it has. I did encourage the people at the Catholic Multicultural Center to look at those two buildings as a retail site for a little bit of grab and go kind of carry catering kind of thing. I don't think that has happened, but that's a discussion that I had. So we do have a lot of both opportunities and obligations that we can work at. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to offer either one of you a minute rebuttal if either would like it. You do not have to take rebuttals for this question or any question, but it is available for you if you would like.
I'll go. Concerning business, I work at a Fitchburg business. I encouraged our company to move here, so I know a little bit about business in Fitchburg. I work full time. I'm not a politician, professional politician. I work full time. I know what it takes to make a business go. It is difficult. It is very difficult, and we need the right client or the right climate for that to happen. Regarding the mayor fall through, it's unfortunate, but our Alder would bear some culpability in that. Not approving a sign. There were some things that could have done. There were 200 jobs there. Hopefully they still come back, but that's all I say. I'm a business person. I work for a business in Fitchburg. I employ people, and I think I'm in the best position to make these things happen.
Thank you. And then Dorothy, before we move on, would you like a rebuttal period?
I think I'm just going to say that I don't recall anything about refusing signs or whatever. There were points and issues that I brought up with the both the store and within people in the community. Concerns that the roof height of the building they were planning was going to be at street level for the residences behind, and they would no doubt have compressors on their roof and things that would end up being objectionable. So I did ask a lot of hard questions, but I don't think that anybody could say I'm culpable in the fact that they changed their mind. I think that that's a ridiculous statement to make.
All right. Thank you to both of you. We'll move on to the next question. We will start the next question with Dorothy. The question is as follows. Last year, there was a lot of debate about relocating a polling place to a more accessible location for District 1 voters. In your opinion, did the council handle it correctly? You have 2 minutes.
I think the council handled it as well as they could have. The city had been relatively determined to not do what both of the council members wanted to do, to a point of refusing to even meet with the church to look at the facility to decide whether that might be appropriate or not. We ended up needing to kind of force the issue by writing a resolution that more or less made them go visit the church. And it was determined that it couldn't work, which is fine. And then Joe came up with other options. And in the end, we worked through something that I think ultimately will work nice. The constraints that we had with COVID issues and everything else made it extremely difficult. In the end, what I want, and it is against what the city wants us to be in the building that the county now owns, and it'll be an EMS facility that there will be no public access to, no public use of, no public anything. I want us to vote in a place where it is a community gathering spot. And that is what Little John's is planning on doing. If not Little John's, it is also what the church is planning on doing. Once we get past COVID, either one of those would be a reasonable option. For that reason, and the city knows, the clerk in particular knows that I will not just lay down and say, well, we're going to work with the county and have our polling place at a building where there is no community access. And I'll end it there. Thank you.
Thank you. I was about to say your time is up. Dave, I will repeat the question for you.
I got it, Kimberly. Okay.
Sure.
Let me provide a little historical backdrop. When I moved here in 87, we had to vote at fire station number 1. That's where we all went to vote. That was acceptable. I stood out in the rain, long rain one night, when Bill Clinton defeated George Bush in the election the first time. I stood out there in the rain, waited. But we moved to the fire station when it was built. And it was quite an improvement, closer for everyone in the district. And it proved to be adequate. We go there to vote. I'm not sure I agree with Alder Krause's objection to that. It is a polling place that we can go and vote. We're not having a community meeting during the polling. I would add that your own newspaper, criticized Alder Krause for not working with the city. Ultimately, I would praise her that we did come up with a good location. That voting location at the old furniture store worked out very well. But I am not opposed to voting there. Again, voting is a responsibility. My grandmother at 83 went to vote. The last thing she did, and she died shortly later. She had some local election. So I don't believe it's as much a building as a place that is not difficult to get to for the majority of our residents, and I don't feel it needs to be a community gathering space. So I'll end with that.
All right. I would like to offer either one of you a rebuttal if you would like to do so. Oh, Dorothy, you're on mute.
Sorry. When that newspaper article was published, I did not go back and say, well, this is what really happened. There had been emails back and forth that said that they did not intend to consider going to the church. Like I said, we needed to force the issue to get them even to look at the church. So, and again, voting is part of community. I want to encourage community. If people in the community know of a community place, they are more likely to go there when people are comfortable in a building. So to ask them to go to a public facility that's they're not familiar with, particularly the lower income folks, that I'd have an issue with that. Thank you.
And then Dave, would you like a rebuttal period?
I think that's baloney. It's been a community site before. They know the location. Again, voting is a responsibility. You're going there, you're going there to vote, to cast your ballot. You're not going there to drink coffee. People take that responsibility seriously. I voted in every election pretty much since I've been 18 years old. And again, standing out in the rain, just because someone is low income, I think they feel the same way about voting that I do. It's their responsibility, and they'll go where, where we're going to have it. That's all.
Thank you to both of you. Our final community round question, we'll start with Dave. The question is as follows. Another big discussion point this last year in the district was the possibility of a teen center in the Jamestown neighborhood. In your opinion, is this a realistic goal for the city, and should it be a priority for the council? You have 2 minutes.
Who isn't for a teen center? There's not anyone that, I live virtually 2 blocks from where the problems are. And I don't think we'll find anyone that isn't, would like to have a teen center. Maybe Dorothy can use her connections to get Bill Gates to write us the check. But I would also add that, that neighborhood's been there a long time. I live in that neighborhood, I'm down in that neighborhood. All of a sudden to say, well, we have to borrow this money right now for this teen center. We have a capital improvement program. Alder Kraus is well aware of that for planning so that we can do things properly. And they tried to bypass that during a time when we're in a COVID crisis. Taxes collections are down, revenues are down, and we're proposing new spending during that time. I just find that irresponsible, as did Alder Randy Udall, who is the treasurer of the State Democratic Party. I am for a teen center, but we need to plan it. What is the mission? What services? Many things like that. How are we going to pay for it? I am for one, but we need to raise a large amount of money in donations. Second, how are we going to continue to fund it? Again, I would like donations to fund the operation. I would like it run by a nonprofit. But even before we get there, are there other options? We have, as Alder Kraus correctly pointed out, we have the resource of the Catholic Multicultural Center. We have other buildings that we could lease space in. We're looking at spending probably $2.25 million before we help one person. Okay, can't we look at some other options first? That's all.
Thank you. And then Dorothy, I'll repeat the question for you. Another big discussion point last year in the district was the possibility of a teen center in the Jamestown neighborhood. In your opinion, is this a realistic goal for the city, and should this be a priority for the council? You have 2 minutes.
Ultimately, it will be a realistic goal. Not right now. I don't think anybody expected us to start putting all that money out right now. But ever since I've been on council, we have had problems not only in the King James community, but in the Allied, Belmar, Thurston Lane, all kinds of street names that the police know. Most recently, it's been stealing cars and things like that. We have kids that are getting in trouble. We need to help them. There's a lot of people that say, well, lock them up, throw away the key, whatever. I am not in favor of destroying young people's lives because they do something stupid. Every one of us have probably pushed bubble as a teenager, and we need guidance. A lot of these kids don't have the guidance that they really should have. A lot of the parents came from really difficult situations where they never had a chance to learn decent parenting. We need a gathering place where these kids can work with community professionals to get their lives along a more productive track. We don't have a facility really anywhere in Fitchburg, maybe in the area. We need a place. We'll very likely start out maybe at Little John's. They've got a community room that they're building. We'll meet with groups, with professionals to talk to kids. There's a lot of county programs that are working on issues involving youth. But they need somewhere where the kids can meet, and they need to do it where the kids are at. So that's the main reason that we really want to work on such a building. Thank you.
Thank you to both of you. I'd like to offer a rebuttal period if anyone would like to take it.
I'll take it. I don't disagree with Alder Kraus on that. It's needed. I'd like to add, there are many things, the problems she was addressing, we don't want to throw any lives away either. But we have a very good school district. And if kids are kept busy, they're not in trouble. So, we can't solve this ourselves. We need to work with the school district. We should be encouraging more extracurricular activities. If children are busy, then they are not having the problem. I would say though that, some of the kids, we build a community center, well, they're not going to be there. There's a certain amount that aren't, but there's other things we can do, small things. And I think we can rent rooms, we can do things, it is needed, but I'm not in favor of spending $2.25 million, before we help one person. I think we have a lot of good options to look at to help our youth.
Thank you. And then Dorothy, would you like to have a rebuttal period?
Yeah, I will. We have to also keep in mind that Fitchburg has a recreation department. The Fitchburg Recreation Department does not do anything up in our neighborhood. We need to get them to get some programming for youth, for seniors, for all kinds of people. It's not just on the schools to provide recreation. We need to also work with them, but they've kind of got their hands full right now trying to just manage to teach kids during this crazy time. So I entirely feel for them, but I want to put the onus more on the city to get recreation programming up in this area. I think I can say they do ice skating, and they manage the building there. So, but that's it. Thanks.
That is your time. Well, with that concludes our first round of questions with community. Our second round of questions will focus on city finances and the budget. For this first question, we will start with Dorothy. The question is as follows. The city has had unusually tight budgets for the last few years, and it's not likely to change in the near future. What should the city's priorities be for spending with its limited resources? You have 2 minutes.
The city's budget has been tight since I've been on city council. Every year, we tighten it more and more and more. One thing that ends up happening is we get stuff that we really need get squeezed out of the budget, rather than say, well, how much more can we cut from the budget? We have to figure out how to get more revenue into the budget. I don't know quite how to do that, but that's what we need to do. Right now we have, if people look at the streets that they live on and they look at the alligator cracking that's going on, we haven't been maintaining the streets like we need to, because that's easy to not put into budgets. There's all kinds of things that are not in the budget because we can't afford to put things in the budget. And people don't want certain things cut, like they don't want, well, obviously we don't want to cut personnel. We were just through that. I don't know what we can cut. We can't keep cutting because we have cut to the quick that we are totally bleeding. And I'm not certain how to do that other than to figure out how to find more revenue. Hopefully, as more apartments come up, particularly, I did a little bit of a study to figure out how much revenue the city was getting from apartments. We're getting in high density, we're getting about $61,000 a year in tax revenue per acre. For single family, that's about $15,000 per acre. So I encourage density as a revenue source.
Thank you. That is your time. Dave, I will repeat the question for you and for viewers. The question is as follows. The city has had unusually tight budgets for the last few years, and it's not likely to change in the near future. What should the city's priorities be for spending with its limited resources? You have 2 minutes.
Many years ago, I had the privilege of attending Badger Boys State. At that one, I had an epiphany moment. A speaker talked and he said, the most important vote you can cast is in a local election. Everyone thinks it's presidential, state, or whatever. It's a local. And he said, because there is a direct tie, between the money you pay and the services you can get. It's the only place where that tie is. As you start moving out, it comes funny money. So, and he also, that struck a chord with me. I've always remembered that people, the city has no money. The city, they talk about the city investing this or that. No, the city has no money. Dorothy and I have the money. We're the ones that pay the taxes, okay? The taxpayers have the money, and we decide what we want to give the city. We've had it backwards. The city has told us what they're going to take for the longest time. And I think the only way, if you look at the growth of our taxes over the last 12 years, okay, our taxes have gone up roughly 7% a year, and our assessments have only gone up, about 3%. So, we're spending more than we're gaining. I agree with Alder Kraus, need to grow our revenue, but I feel that comes more from creating businesses that create jobs, and then people have a place to live. So again, city growth in spending, it's kind of like death by 1,000 cuts, and all of a sudden we get to the place where we are. Dorothy is right, the budget's tight because we keep spending and spending. My personal philosophy, and this is why I've been on board of Public Works, city is to provide basic services, streets, sewer, parks, police, fire. Those are the primary things. And we need to stay focused on those. If we lose focus on those, then things, the train goes off the track.
Thank you to both of you. I'd like to offer a 1-minute rebuttal period to either one of you. Dorothy, you have 1 minute.
All right. One of the reasons that our taxes are up is because of Verona School District. If you look at the entire tax bill, it's up a lot more than if you just look at the city portion of the bill. Another reason why our taxes are up is because we've got the dark store problem that is so common around the area, where stores don't want to have to pay any more taxes than they must. So the taxpayers have to make up what they are taking the city to court to get their tax liability to the city reduced. And it is the taxpayers then that have to pick that up. I consider myself taxes to be an investment in my community. I'm happy to pay my taxes. I think everybody should look at it as an investment rather than, oh my God, you can't have my money.
Thank you, Dorothy. Dave, would you like a rebuttal period?
I have a little different view. I'm glad to pay appropriate level of tax for good services. And in Fitchburg, I believe we have above average to excellent services as a reasonable cost for what we provide. I would dispute Alder Kraus's contention, though. This is the city spending has gone up, in the last 12 years, average of 7%. I realize the Verona School District has hit us. I'm just looking at the city portion of that. And single family homes and duplexes this year pay 60% of the taxes, okay? 12 years ago, we paid 65, so we've got some growth. We've had growth in businesses and in apartments, but it still is, the homeowners are still paying the majority of the taxes, 60%, and they probably are using 30% of the services. So I'll stop there.
Thank you both. We'll start with Dave for this next question. The question is as follows. The city has been planning for the town of Madison annexation for nearly 2 decades, and the annexation will happen during the winter's term. Do you feel that the city is prepared for the financial impact? Dave, you have 2 minutes.
I would say not. If they knew what was going to hit us, I think we would have changed our plans. You know, you've seen, your newspaper has reported, and Dorothy was at the council meeting, you know, where staff recommended 15 additional positions. Now, with the equalized valuation of that property in the town of Madison, approximately 160 million. So if you look at our mill rate, it would be somewhere around 930,000 in taxable revenue we receive. The 15 positions would be far greater than that, and then we'd have to maintain it. You know, they have done nothing over there since the annexation was announced. You know, so the infrastructure has fallen down. It's a big challenge, and the winner, I think, is going to have to make a tough choice. Maybe 6 positions. I just don't see 15. I see we're going to need additional police there, probably a social worker, assessor. You know, about half those positions. But you know, it's going to be a millstone, and that's why we have to really batten down the hatches. We have to watch our spending now. You know, we're coming through COVID period where revenues were down, all these things, and now this is going to hit. You know, it's going to take some adults in the room to get us through this, and that's about all I'll say. You know, it's inevitable. It's done. Nothing Dorothy and I can do about it. You know, we have to deal with it now, and I don't want to. You know, I don't want my tax bill to go up appreciably to pay for that, but I don't see much way around it right now.
Thank you. Dorothy, I will repeat the question for you and the viewers. The city has been planning for the town of Madison annexation for nearly 2 decades, and the annexation will happen during the winter's term. Do you feel the city is prepared for the financial impact? You have 2 minutes.
I completely agree with Dave. It's going to be a major wallop. We will make it through this also. There have been hard times. There'll be more hard times. There will be good times. We do have a strong community over there. People kind of look at the buildings and say, oh my God, oh no, another. But there's a JFF office and social worker there that is incredibly good. I know some of the residents over there that are really incredible people, and I look forward to bringing a lot of them into the city. But yeah, it's going to be tough. One of the assets as such that we have is that the town hall building that's on Fish Hatchery Road north of the Beltline goes to the city. They are going to hand that off to someone. We don't know who. I'm kind of hoping that the county buys it because the county is looking for facilities for a couple of their programs. That building is across from the big St. Vinny's building, and it's already off the tax rolls. So, and it'll be in the city of Madison ultimately. It's going to be valued at least 1.2 million to sell that property. So that is money that we'll be able to roll into the whole plan for the annexation planning. But it's going to be really difficult. I'm not going to make any joke or any bones about it. It's just we're going to have to batten down the hatches and ride it out, and it will all work out in the end.
Thanks to both of you. I'd like to offer both of you a 1-minute rebuttal if you would like.
I don't have much to add. You know, this is one area Alder Kraus and I are in agreement. I think where we can, you know, we can't have 15 additional staff. I'm sorry, it just won't work. You know, we have to figure out how to do more with less. And that's all I'll say. Sorry, my dog just came in the room.
I should have added that as a rule of the forum. If there are any pets, they must come into the screen for all to see. Just kidding. Dorothy, would you like to have a rebuttal minute?
What we've talked about in council is the fact that we will be adding staff year by year rather than all at once. So that will help a lot. Probably should also note that there is some business properties and opportunities yet to be developed. There's a TIF district and things to deal with that hopefully will make it a little easier, a little bit lighter lift, and we can work on income generation from those areas as well.
Thank you. And Dorothy will start with the last question of this round. The question is as follows. There are many streets, roads, and intersections in the city that some people would consider in disrepair and even dangerous. Budget constraints limit what the city can do. Where should the city's priorities on infrastructure be? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. We have an application that the Public Works Department uses, and Dave is extremely familiar with this. We need to keep close track of that. We need to say, what do we realistically need? Because like I said, those alligator cracks in virtually all of our streets are just getting worse and worse. And the more water that gets down in those, they become even worse yet. We have to try to get on top of streets. I know Steve Arnold back when wanted to start a fund particularly for that. I would have liked to have seen that happen, but again, belts need to get tightened and we don't have the money to do what we have to do nonetheless to save up to do something in the future. And it's just, we need to watch our funds extremely carefully. We need to keep real close track of what's happening with our roads, and we need to prioritize what needs to happen with them to keep them in the best possible repair. Rural area roads are crumbling at the edges, and it's just really hard to, I don't envy the Public Works Department for trying to have to not only figure out what needs to happen with our roadways and streets, but to have to try and figure out how to fund getting it done. And then to, when it doesn't get funded, to have to continue to look at those streets deteriorating and say, we do what we can. And that's exactly what they do.
Thank you. Dave, I'll repeat the question for you and the viewers. There are many streets, roads, and intersections in the city that some people would consider in disrepair and even dangerous. Budget constraints limit what the city can do. Where should the city's priorities on infrastructure be? You have 2 minutes. Oh, you're on mute. I will
Give me
research.
5 seconds back.
Oh,
I echo a lot of what Alder Kraus said there. But when I came on the board 28 years ago, we had a pavement management program is what Dorothy was indicating. We evaluate the condition of the streets, and this is a particular time of the year where our residents say, "What the hell is the city doing? Everything's falling apart." After the spring or after the winter, the plows, things look pretty rough, and we have to do some paving, patching, and repairing things. But I think we've done a relatively good job of looking at this. We have some different techniques: slurry seals, chip seals, crack seals. We have a whole maintenance system. What has happened to us, and as Dorothy alluded, though, the city has grown. When I first came, we were about 7,800. Now we're 2,500 or more. We have a lot more streets, and our budget for doing the maintenance hasn't necessarily grown with the amount of streets. So that puts us in the conundrum we're in. So I think we have to do a good job of prioritizing, major, the major roads that are traveled more, need to, for safety wise, need to be maintained at a little higher level. But in the long run, pay me now or pay me later, we ignore don't do crack sealing and those things, then instead of, minor rehabs, it's a full rebuild. So, one initiative or one thing I will be doing, as chairman of the board, is trying to increase the maintenance budget for our roads. This is a basic service that all of us use almost every day. This needs to be, a high priority, and that's whether you're a biker or a car driver.
Thank you. I'd like to offer a 1-minute rebuttal period for either one of you if you would like it. Yep, go ahead, Dorothy.
Yeah, I'm just going to agree with Dave again. It's just, streets have not had the prioritization that they really need to have, and it's been kind of sad. I live near Sentinel Pass and Seminole Highway, and they've been repairing the same potholes at that intersection for, this will be the 3rd year. We have not had any street repairs done in at least that amount of time, and particularly on the older parts of town where the streets were built in the 60s and 70s. They are deteriorating so much sooner than the streets where the newer streets, just say. So yeah, but I completely agree, we have to give them a lot more attention than they get.
Thank you. Dave, would you like 1 minute?
Yeah, I would just add, the focus, and Dorothy would agree with this, our focus is always on the new stuff, there's new subdivision we're putting in and all the infrastructure and this and that, and we forget to take care of the people that, paying for everything. And, it just needs a higher, it's gonna cost some money, pay me now or pay me later. And again, it's one of my initiatives, as chairman of that board, is to get more funding for our road maintenance. Where it'll come from, I don't know. I wish I had the answer, but I'll be working on it. That's all I can say.
Thanks to both of you. That completes our second round of questions about the city budget and finances. We will move on to our third round, which features questions that involve general citywide issues that aren't necessarily specific to a specific district or a neighborhood. Dave will start with this first question. The question is as follows. The city will be hiring a new administrator in the next couple of months. What to you are the most important qualities for the next administrator to have? You have 2 minutes.
All right. This is a fairly, I think fairly, in my mind, a fairly easy question to answer. Okay, we need someone with good administrative skills. As Dorothy knows, there's many rules regarding meetings. There's a myriad of things administratively that need to be followed. And we need someone with a very solid grasp on that, is one thing. The second is someone with management experience. You're the captain of the ship over there, and you need to have good person management skills, human resource skills. And then the third, and I feel this is the most important, the person needs to have a mindset that they're there to serve the residents. Right now, I feel like we've moved away from the original vision that Doug Morissette and the founders had here, that we don't want to be Madison. We want to be our own city, our own identity. And I every year I feel like we move farther away from that. We need an administrator that feels that his function is to serve our taxpayers and our residents is his most important role that he can serve. And that needs to be a fundamental, that uncompromising fundamental for this person, along with the administrative and human resource skills.
Thank you. Dorothy, I'll repeat the question for you and the viewers. The city will be hiring a new administrator in the next couple of months. For you, what are the most important qualities in a new administrator? You have 2 minutes.
It is absolutely true that we need someone that's going to be looking after the residents. So much of the city right now is focused on business and infrastructure without, there's a lot of development, say on the North Fish Hatchery Road area, where they talk about this and that and whatever, but they never quite get around to talking about the people that live there. That is something that we have to be more aware of. Our administrator needs to be more aware of all of the people that live in the city, and they need to be willing to work more closely and listen to more people rather than say, well, I know how to do this, I've got it handled, which I think has been a little bit of an issue in the past. At least that's what I've heard from some staff. We need someone who wants to encourage staff participation in all decision making, that wants to support the interactions between staff and council members, that wants to bring citizens into the decision making process more so. We need someone that, and I love the program that Mandy from the Senior Center is kind of taken hold of for the staff to work on understanding the issues of diversity that we have within the city. So it's a staff incentive thing, but I would hope that it will trickle out into the greater community. We do have diversity issues in the community that we need to address.
Thanks to both of you. I would like to offer a 1-minute rebuttal for either one of you.
I'll go. I don't think I need a minute. And one thing I would add is we need this person to ensure that we have transparency. You know, I abhor, I'm not an insider person. I'm not an inside politics person in Fitchburg. You know, I work too many hours in my regular job. You know, I don't have time for that. I have time for doing my Fitchburg business. And we need transparency, that there's none of these decisions, as Dorothy mentioned, are made behind closed doors. And we need open transparency for all our residents so they can feel part of the process. You know, many people, you know, they feel disenfranchised. Things are being done behind doors. You know, we need this person to keep everything out in the open, so no one has any complaints that, oh, I wasn't informed, or they did this without telling me. I think that needs to be a major focus of this person. And I did take a minute. I'm sorry.
I don't know how any of us will forgive. Dorothy, would you like to take a minute to add anything to the conversation?
Just really echoing, we're again in complete agreement on things, transparency and just wanting to be out there and be available and be interactive with people is just so huge. I think I'll leave it at that.
All right. Dorothy, you don't get much of a break here because you will start with the next question. The question is as follows. What role can the city play in helping ensure the safety of its citizens and the health of its businesses as it relates to COVID-19 recovery? You have 2 minutes.
Oh, as it relates to COVID, safety is a much bigger issue in general. I encourage people to follow what the county health department is saying for the most part. But I also encourage people to interact with the county to say, hey, this is my perspective on it. They do make adjustments. They have been making adjustments. It's hard to know what more we can do. As we get closer into summer, I'm certain there will be a lot more business that happens outdoors from the actual businesses. We've been doing that all winter. I don't know in a Wisconsin winter, particularly this February, how well you can do that. But we do need to encourage as much as we can people to stay safe, to keep their distance. City has provided some money, but again, when money is tight, how much money can you say, here you go, businesses? I think what we've been sending businesses has been kind of the pass-through money that we get from state or federal government programs. To be able to encourage more money from state and federal might be something that the city might be able to do. We have the municipal lobby organization that we work with that we should probably work more closely with to get them to talk more about our needs at the Capitol. So let it go with that.
Thank you. Dave, I'll repeat the question for you and for the viewers. What role can the city play in helping ensure the safety of its citizens and the health of its businesses as it relates to COVID-19 recovery? You have 2 minutes.
Well, as far as the health of the safe health of the citizens, we have to follow the laws that are put in front of us. The county has been driving that ship. I have many issues with the transparency of them, the decisions they made. I thought they were making decisions in a vacuum, but ultimately it's each of us to look after our neighbor. I have a neighbor. We have a discussion in our neighborhood right now that we have a neighbor with immune compromised system, and we're trying to get everyone vaccinated so he can live his life again normally. But it's a person. At this point, I don't think the city has much. Put the rules out there and expect people to follow them. The health of the businesses, though, ask more money. I don't know where the money is supposed to come from. The federal government has no money. They print it. The state, I think our best path forward is get our businesses open back up. When we talk about the health of the employees, I think their health is pretty bad when they're out of a job and worrying about, they've lost their job and wondering how they're going to pay their bills. I think that's worse for your health maybe than COVID can be if you're a healthy person. So I just feel we need to be safe personally, take personal responsibility, but we have to get our businesses back open so that they can make money. And again, I don't think there's any more money coming, or we should expect any more. Federal government has a license to print. State doesn't. City of Fitchburg certainly doesn't. So again, be safe. Respect your neighbors, respect yourself, and let's get our businesses opened.
Thanks to both of you. I will open a 1 minute rebuttal period or conversation period, since there wasn't really a disagreement there, to anyone who would like it. Go ahead, Dorothy.
I would take, and one of the things that I want my minute for is to say thank you to Thad at Fitchburg Family Pharmacy for all the efforts that he's made toward helping to have a healthy community. He no doubt got paid by the printed money to do both testing and vaccinations, but he has gone over and above as a city business. I would encourage, as people get any kind of the incentive for whatever they're calling the checks that the government is printing for us, to spend that money at our local businesses. That is what will help more than almost anything. And absolutely, Dave, get the businesses open. We really, really, really have to do that.
Thank you. And then Dave, would you like a minute to add to the conversation?
I don't have too much to add, except, I'm an electrical worker, and there's been a shortage of people that do what I do during the past year. And I've been tested 8 times. I've had to work out of state numerous times. It's been onerous on me getting this done, and I'm looking forward to having it. I've had to travel a lot, work away from home, get tested when I come back, make sure my family's safe. I'm tired of this. I want it behind us. I want to be able to go out to eat. I want to go to my parish and have the church full again. I want to be able to go to Badger football games. You know, I think Dorothy is in agreement. We want this behind us and get our businesses open, and then we can get things back to normal. But I guess that's what I would say. Open things up ASAP.
All right, thanks to both of you. So we have the final question of this round, and Dave will start. The question is as follows. What should be the city of Fitchburg's role in ensuring the community's underrepresented groups are both heard and their needs are met? You have 2 minutes.
That's a good question. Repeat it for me one more time here.
Sure thing. Here, let me stop
So
the clock there for a second.
it was a long question.
I can absolutely repeat it. What should the city of Fitchburg's role be in ensuring the community's underrepresented groups are both heard and their needs are met?
Okay. All right. So I'll start out. I think it's relatively easy to answer. You know, that it is, you know, Dorothy is Alder. If I'm an Alder, you know, it's our job to listen to our residents. Okay. We have a good system now. In the past, you know, these residents, it wasn't easy for them to get all the way over to City Hall for a meeting. Well, now we're going to continue to have all our meetings via Zoom. So anyone can call into the meeting, you know, and see what is happening. So I guess, you know, if you want to say anything, a silver lining out of this is we have a better system for people to be engaged in the government. One thing I would say is, you know, I don't mean to sound crass, but the city is not a social services agency. You know, we're here to provide basic services, is what we do. And again, realize if our neighborhoods go to hell, we all suffer from that. But my thinking, you know, I have a little different view on this. Our job as city or Alder people is to create opportunity. We want opportunity for people. And the best way for our underserved, you know, or lower income, whoever, is to have opportunity, have jobs, have a good system in our city for moving people around if we have to, a public transportation system. But I'm going to fall back on, you know, we need opportunity. We can't downplay. We need social workers, and we come back to maybe the community center is a good means for doing that. But again, I fall back on opportunity. When I get my 1 minute, I'll have a little more I want to say on this.
Sure. Thank you. Dorothy, I'll repeat the question for you and for the audience. The question is as follows. What should be the city of Fitchburg's role in ensuring the community's underrepresented groups are both heard and their needs are met? You have 2 minutes.
That really is a tough one, because the groups that we're talking about largely are distrusting of government and certainly of police, and they've got all kinds of reasons culturally to not want to participate. So encouraging them is extremely difficult. We need to go into the communities and understand what's happening with them, and we need to represent them whether we hear from them or not. They won't be heard from. For the most part, there's a few activists out there that will go crazy and speak up in ways that are difficult. For the most part, we can say Zoom, yeah, but the vast majority of them have technology that is not more than their little Obama phone or whatever. So they often don't have broadband to Zoom in with or whatever. So there's that huge lack of opportunity also. When we talk about social service, I look at the senior center and I say, you know, we provide outrageous amounts of social services to our senior population, but we provide almost nothing to our low income and struggling populations. So I would like to try and find a balance in between those two somehow or another. We have 2 social workers on staff, I think, in the senior center. Yeah, there's a need there, but seniors is not the only need in the community.
Thank you. Dave, you indicated that you would like a
Yeah.
minute, so
Well,
I will give you that minute.
Okay, I had experience with a union leader from Minneapolis, and the union consulted with him when they built the Metrodome, and they were required to have a certain amount, the workforce building a Metrodome needed to represent the population in the Minneapolis area. So the union hired him to provide training. And so what they did, they found some community leaders and brought them together. Well, who are the young men and young women that need jobs, and what's the training that they need? And I think that's where we can help. Like, for instance, Sub-Zero has jobs. They have a blueprint reading class, that on kind of online. We need to find those people that want to work and find the opportunities to train them. They missed out on the opportunity in school. Let's find a way to get them trained so that they can go to work.
Thank you. Dorothy, would you like an extra minute to extend the conversation?
Sure. And that is another absolutely. We have a training facility in Jamestown neighborhood where window installers, drywallers, and painters are trained. We ought to work with that group a little bit more to encourage use of that. One thing that I've asked Chief Pulvermacher, Fire Chief, both police and fire on their applications, have you ever been convicted of a felony? If the answer is yes, you're not even considered. I would like at least the fire department to take a look at that restriction and say, because someone did something when they were a kid and now they're 25, 30 years old and want to be a firefighter, should they still be denied that opportunity? I would like to have them look at that. I wouldn't mind if police look at it as well, but that's a harder thing to ask. So.
Thank you. So we do have a little bit of time left here. So we have audience questions. We have 2 of them. We will start by directing them to one of you, but the other will have a chance to answer them as well. So Dorothy, I will start with you, and the question is as follows. One person emailed us about the city's consideration of ending its contract with Madison Metro and the potential effect that it would have on people who need to travel outside the city. Do you support keeping the contract with Madison Metro, or are you in favor of another solution? You have 2 minutes.
One of the things that, and I talked to Chuck Camp, used to run Madison Metro, in a meeting once, and I said, we need to figure out how to get more suits on buses. We need to change the stereotype of who buses are for. One thing that I asked when we were looking at changing routes was, should we consider the possibility of running a bus through the Highlands area or other areas that you don't traditionally think about having buses? I would like, for instance, to have a grandma from Jamestown to be able to get popped on the bus to be delivered down to the senior center for lunch. Right now, if it hasn't changed for the worse, you can take a bus to the senior center that drops you off at 8:30 in the morning, and then you're stuck there until 4:30 in the afternoon because it's just that prime time service. I would like to expand somehow or another. Again, money. I would love to expand the services that we have through Madison Metro. And I had another thought, but I'm not thinking of it now, so I'll just let it go.
All right, thank you. Because this question is long, I will definitely repeat it, not only for you, Dave, but for the audience. So the question is as follows. One person emailed us about the city's consideration of ending its contract with Madison Metro and the potential effect that it would have on people who need to travel outside the city. Do you support keeping the contract with Madison Metro, or are you in favor of another solution? You have 2 minutes.
Well, I'd like to say all things are on the table. I'm uniquely qualified, I feel, to answer this. The bus goes by my house. I can tell you it goes by somewhere around 6:15 every morning, or closer to 6 every morning. And they'll still be going by at 10 at night. And there's no one on the bus. There's no one on that bus. Now, I've never seen more than 3 people on the bus. Now, if you go to Whitney Way near the stop with Williamsburg in the morning, there's quite a few more people on there. But it's vastly underutilized. And I think we need to evaluate. I'm for public transportation, but I think we need to evaluate some other options. You know, as Dorothy mentioned, maybe we have our own something, our inner city shuttle, or possibly look at vouchers for people. It may be a lot cheaper to give them vouchers to use Lyft or Uber to take them to, say they work in Middleton. All right, we'll take them to the Metro transfer site, and they can get on and go out to Middleton. I just think we could do a lot more with the same money by doing it a little smarter. I would just add one thing. I'm not crazy about us, spending our residents, that work in Madison, so we have to have buses, take people in Madison back at night. I want to grow our jobs in Fitchburg so that people, live here and work here, which I do. I live a mile and a half from where I work. I can walk, ride my bike. As far as the sustainability, moving forward, that's where we need to go. And granted, we're always got people working in Madison. I won't get away with that. But I think we need to look at other options besides these big buses, running around our city empty all the time. I think we can do better.
Thank you. I'd like to offer either one of you a rebuttal period if you would like. Dorothy, go ahead.
Yeah, just a real quick, we do have a lot of issues with the city being the end of the routes. Also that Madison Metro charges by the hour for bus service, and we have a lot of longer streets. So we end up having major issues. BRT is something that we're going to be looking at. One of the things that I talk about is the need for park and ride lots to go along with any BRT service that we have, so that people can drive and park and take BRT into town. We also have a train track that I would like to see some commuter service on. It goes from here, it goes past Alliant Energy Center, it goes past Monona Terrace and downtown, it potentially goes to the airport. If we had a hotel down in Fitchburg near the end of that track, we could make it a tourist thing. And we could get a lot of commuter service off of that line rather than what we got now.
Thank you. Dave, would you like to add a minute to the conversation?
Yeah, I would just echo what Dorothy said. We paid for that line, to keep it in service, mostly to take stuff down to Oregon. But we have the line, and it's always been my hope that could be taking people downtown. Doesn't have to cross streets. I just feel that would be a good option to get people downtown. And we have a growing, the community is growing over there. There's a lot of people live near that track corridor right now. So at some point, I think we need to take advantage of that.
Thank you. Our second audience question, we will start with Dave. This question is also a little bit longer, so bear with me. The question is as follows. We have an emailed question from a person who lives near Lacey Road. She had questions about the scale of the proposed reconstruction of Lacey Road, both to the west at Seminole Highway and to the east at Cyan. What is your opinion of these improvements? And Dave, you have 2 minutes.
Oh, in 2 minutes, I could take 200 here, but all right, I'll start. So anyone that's driven on there, and Dorothy has, is well aware that Lacey Road going east or going from Seminole to Fitch-Verona, has a hill, is dangerous, line of sight, then curves near the top. It's not really it's not that safe, and so we have an opportunity with a part of it being a TIF district to improve the road. I feel we should, I want to cut down the hill so it's not quite as steep. See what we can do to reduce the curves. I am not, I'll repeat this, I'm not in favor of the current cross section that we show proposed with bike lanes, a meridian, and a separate multi-use path. I feel that is not needed. Maybe we make the multi-use path a little wider and put a line down that and take away the bike lanes on the road. Also, the meridian or the median, I don't know how much we need that. I kind of have mixed feelings. There's discussion about the curb and gutter. I feel we should put curb and gutter on this. You know, as Dorothy mentioned, roads cracking from the side. If you don't have curb and gutter, that happens. So I'm in favor of a narrower road that would take less trees. You know, I don't and multi-use path that bicyclists, walkers, rollerbladers, everyone can use, and keeping the road, you know, a narrower width, which will cost us all less money. We'll have less runoff, less impervious area, and I'll stop there.
All right. Since it's a long question, I will repeat it for you, Dorothy, and for the audience. We have an emailed question from a person who lives near Lacey Road. She had questions about the scale of the proposed reconstruction of Lacey Road, both to the west at Seminole Highway and to the east at Cyan. What is your opinion of these proposed improvements? You have 2 minutes.
I think a lot of it can get looked at. For the most part, I presume that the designers know more about it than I do. This is one area that Dave probably knows a little bit more than I do, since he's an engineer. I just have a lot of experience in listening to what people have to say. One group that I listen to a lot is biking communities, and one of their main concerns about bike lanes and multi-use paths is we have a lot of commuter bikers in the area, and they just want to zoom right along. They don't want to have to navigate around dog walkers and strollers and people on multi-use paths. They want to go with the traffic, period. They do hate roundabouts. So there's issues to talk about, whether it should be curb and gutter or not. I don't know quite yet. I know you actually need more space if it's not curb and gutter, because then you have to work with ditches and things like that. I know there's utilities there. I asked in the meeting about the possibility of undergrounding utilities, and they're like, oh, that's way too expensive. It would be nice if it were possible, but it's financially not going to happen. I think there's going to be a lot more discussion, even should Lacey and Seminole be a roundabout or a light and various other treatments. How important is there going to be to have mediums for people that need to turn left and things like that to not obstruct traffic? So there's a lot of questions yet to ask.
Thank you. Would anybody like a minute to rebut or add to the conversation?
I'd like to add just a little bit. I just thank Dorothy for giving me the credit, knowing more about roads. I'm an electrical engineer, so we're probably about on the same level, Dorothy. I'm not a civil engineer, but the one thing I'd say, you know, I listened to all arguments, and I'm an avid bicyclist. I ride a lot. I ride to work. I ride whenever I have time. When I'm not working 50, 80 hours a week, I'm riding bike in the summer. And I don't agree with these commuter bicyclists or whatever. You know, many of them ride the Capital City Trail, or they ride, you know, trails to work. You ride from Camp Randall back up to the Beltline. There's not a busier section of road, and there's guys that are flying down that. There's dog walkers. There's, you know, learn to get along. You know, kind of my opinion is, if you guys want those and you're you know, when they're training and doing that, they're not on these paths. They're out in the country somewhere.
Thank you. Dorothy, would you like to have a minute to add to the conversation?
Sure. And of course, at least for now, this is out in the country that we're talking about where they're at. But there is a lot of development going on and a lot more development that's going to be coming up. So that road is going to be an urban roadway anytime now. Since we have it part of TIF district and this and that, we probably should go the same way we did with Lacey Road at the other end and just kind of bite the bullet and say, let's do it the right way rather than compromise it down to less than and keep it a rural road. I think we need to turn it into an urban road. But again, there will be a lot more conversation before all the decision making is done.
Thank you. That is all for our submitted questions. So we will now have each candidate offer a closing statement as to why they believe the public should vote for them. Dave went second with his opening statement, so we'll start with him. Dave, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Thank you. So those of you who watched tonight, thank you for your diligence listening to Dorothy and I discuss these issues. Again, I'm a longtime resident. I'm a full-time working engineer, probably full-time and a half working engineer. And I find time to volunteer. You know, my time to the city is as a volunteer. It has been for all the years. I've been appointed by the last 9 mayors to the Board of Public Works and recently been appointed to a leadership position. Okay, and I've been asked to run for Alder. I didn't seek this out. People have said, we don't like the direction of the city. We feel you have views that are more appropriate for what Fitchburg should be. And so they've asked me to run. And my family has always been in public service. My great-grandparents donated land and built the schoolhouses that my grandparents attended. My grandfathers were town board chairs. My mother was a town treasurer. I have brothers, uncles that are educators. You know, our family has always been in public service, as I have. But I preferred for many years to work behind the scenes and, you know, not be as visible, help the city best I can. And now I'm ready to take on a bigger role. And people I would say the staff at City Hall trust me, respect me. A large number of alders and former mayors have endorsed me. I feel my experience, my business experience, you know, I'm full-time. I'm not a politician. I find time to serve the city. Our citizens would be best served having me represent them. Thank you.
Thank you. Dorothy, you have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Okay. I have become, I suppose, a politician, but a local politician. People have suggested I run for mayor. I'm like, oh, heck no. It's just that's more than I want. I could make a lot more money if I ran for assembly or look for hire, but I like working on the local level. I come from a family that never had much. So I understand people that don't have much. And what I end up seeing is that we live in a society where more and more and more of us don't have as much as we had anticipated we would have by now. A lot of our adults and middle-aged folks are doing worse than they'd anticipated. Their children are not getting what they had anticipated their kids would get. We've got the whole middle seems to be gone in politics and in society. We need to get that middle back. That's just huge. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done. We've got the redistricting coming up that I've been involved in on the county level, as well as wanting to be involved in it in the city, along with everything else that we've talked about. And it's just, we need so much to be done, particularly again for the people that we don't get to hear from very often. We need to find ways to reach into those communities. There's a lot of good work being done along those ways, and we need to continue that.
Thank you. Well, to conclude this, thank you to both of you for participating in tonight's forum. And thank you to all of you who are either tuning in live or are watching later for this candidate forum. Please remember to vote in the April 6th spring election. Residents can check their voter registration status on the State Election Commission's website at myvote.wi.gov. Residents will also be able to use the myvotewisconsin.gov website to request absentee ballots for the spring election, look up their polling location, or update their address. We here at the Star and Fact TV wish you all a pleasant evening. And again, thank you for joining us.